There's something I can't stop thinking about. Somewhere in South Africa, a child sat at a desk with an empty stomach, waiting for lunch. At the exact same time, an adult was signing off an invoice and another adult was approving a payment, while another adult was counting money somewhere. They were all sitting in offices, at home their fridges were full, they had lunch plans, meal plans, the works. And they all knew one thing, that money was meant to buy food for children. Children they would never meet. Children whose hunger they would never see with their own eyes. The paperwork said the food was delivered. The system says everything is fine. But in the school, pots were empty, plates were empty, and stomachs were empty. This was greed aimed downwards. Today I want to talk about how people with options, people with salaries, and people with power chose to steal from children who had nothing. Wait, what happened? Every school day across South Africa, over 9 million children rely on a government program to eat. It's called the National School Nutrition Program, or the NSNP. For many learners, this meal isn't a supplement, it isn't an extra, it is literally the only guaranteed meal of the day. And that's why this story is so hard to tell. Because somewhere along the way, people looked at hungry children and saw an opportunity. Investigations and court records have shown a pattern that repeats itself across provinces. Ghost suppliers billing for food that never arrives, unqualified companies winning feeding scheme tenders, suppliers that are unpaid for months, forcing deliveries to stop, rotten or expired food that is arriving at schools, kickbacks and political connections tied to contracts. On paper, everything looks fine, but in reality, children are going hungry. In KwaZulu-Natal, things reached a breaking point. In 2023, the Provincial Education Department tried to centralize the school feeding contract, awarding it to a single company. What followed was absolute chaos. Thousands of schools reported that there were no food deliveries. Food deliveries would be late. Food was sometimes unsafe to eat. And service providers said they wouldn't be paid for months. And you know what happens when service providers don't get paid? They stop delivering. And the result was that children sat in classrooms hungry. In the end, the Special Investigating Unit was eventually brought in to probe the tender process, the procurement failures, and the possible corruption in this particular instance. Now, this wasn't limited to one province. In Gauteng, the school nutrition tender became the subject of legal battles and media investigations. Reports showed that some companies that were awarded contracts were non-compliant with tax laws, they were deregistered or busy in the process of deregistering, or legally didn't even exist in any meaningful way, yet somehow they were entrusted with feeding children. And then there's this other chilling part where in 2025, police arrested suspects that were found transporting school nutrition food, milk, tinned fish, meat for learners. But all of this was stolen. This wasn't surplus food. This wasn't waste. This was food taken directly from the mouths of children. And here's the thing, this scandal isn't shocking because of the money. It's shocking because of who paid the price. It's not politicians who paid the price. It's not officials who were sitting signing off documents. It's not the suppliers. It's the children who paid the price. And these are children who can't vote, children who can't protest. These are children who trusted that the adults that were in charge wouldn't steal from them. You know, sometimes when we talk about corruption, it does tend to feel a little bit distant, slightly abstract. But this, when it comes to this type, this is corruption that shows up as literally a child who can't concentrate in class because their stomach is empty. A learner who ends up dropping out before they can even reach high school. So the next time you hear phrases like irregular expenditure or procurement failure, let's remember this, that somewhere in South Africa there was a child who opened a pot and found it was empty.